So this next slide says, Hebrew men in the truth, hair appearance matches the Bible standards. So we're going to break down the understanding of Hebrew men in the truth, hair appearance matches the Bible standards. So we're going to prove that in the book of Numbers chapter 6, verse 2 on down is going to establish that Hebrew men had what we call today dreadlocks, but in ancient times they just referred to them as being locks. So having locks in your head, you Hebrew men, is biblical. So we're going to read this understanding in the book of Numbers chapter 6 verse 2. It says this, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When either man or woman shall separate themselves to vow, a vow of a Nazarite, to separate themselves unto Yahweh. So this is just an establishment of a certain vow, whether they was a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, setting a vow between the Most High to establish a certain vow to the Most High on what they was going to do. And we're going to establish that in this certain vow that the Nazarite was going to do, whether they was a man or woman who were Hebrew Israelites, they was going to establish a vow not to cut their hair, and they was going to establish a point where they was going to allow their hair to grow to a certain point. Okay? We're going to establish this understanding. And this right here is just an example of a Hebrew brother having locks in his head. Okay? So to show the appearance of Bible righteousness. So we're going to go to the next slide of the continuation on Hebrew men in the truth, hair appearance matches the Bible standards. So we're going to go to the book of Numbers chapter 6 verse 5 to establish the locks or the dreadlocks of understanding being displayed in the Bible. Numbers chapter 6 verse 5. All the days of the vow of his separation, there shall no razor come upon his head, until the days be fulfilled, in the which he separateth himself unto Yahweh. He shall be holy, and shall let the locks of the hair of his head grow. As you can see this understanding, it says, he shall be holy, and shall let the locks of the hair of his head grow. So dreadlocks or locks is considered holy according to this Bible, because we have some Hebrew camps that's out there that's trying to condemn Hebrew brothers for growing locks. Okay, but as you can see, the Bible says having locks or dreadlocks is considered holy. That's why I say he shall be holy and shall let the locks of the hair of his head grow. When it says locks, that's talking about dreadlocks. Okay, something that cannot be untangled easily. That's why it says locks. Because just like you lock a door or you put a lock on something, you cannot open something, right? Because there's a lock on it. That's the same application with hair. Okay, when it's pertaining to locks. Something braided can be what? Untangled. Right? But in this context, when it says locks, it's talking about what we consider today to be dreadlocks, but it's really going into the locks of a hair on a Hebrew man or Hebrew woman. So Hebrew locks or Hebrew dreadlocks is biblical. Point blank, period. That's the understanding. And this right here is an example of a Hebrew man having locks in his head. As you can see, this understanding with the beard, of course. As you can see, this is righteous appearance. This is Hebrew Israelite appearance of understanding. So just like you go to the story of Samson, right? Samson had locks. Okay. So Samson was not a white man. Samson was a so-called black man, right, who was a Hebrew Israelite, and he had locks in his hair, and he grew his locks long due to him being a what? A Nazarite. Based upon this vow in Numbers chapter 6 verse 2 is getting into a vow. So Samson was a Nazarite. That's why he was growing his locks, and he declared a certain vow to the Most High not to cut his hair. And that's why when his hair got cut, he began to get weak, because Samson broke the vow that he established with the Most High as a Nazarite. That's the understanding. Okay? So a man can cut his hair if he wants to. But when you proclaim yourself to be a Nazarite, you're not supposed to cut your hair for a period of time. Okay, whatever vow you had established with the Most High on how long you're going to establish your hair to be grown. Okay, but again, a Nazarite was not supposed to cut their hair for a certain point of time, depending on what type of vow they established between the Most High. So in this next PowerPoint slide, it says, Hebrew men in the truth, hair appearance matches the Bible standards example. So again, we just showing biblical standard of righteousness on biblical standard according to hair appearances, or the actual reflection of righteousness from Hebrew men on what they supposed to look like to put on that presentation on them being Hebrew Israelites. So as you can see, a brother with the beard, mustache, hair on their head. So as you can see, they didn't shave off their hair to be bald headed. They have hair on their head, right? They have a full beard on what they can grow, a mustache. And over here you have a brother to the right. He has a full beard, right? He has hair on his head. As you can see, he did not shave off his hair to be bald. Okay, so this is righteous appearance examples for hair on Hebrew men. The next slide says Hebrew men in the truth, hair appearance matches the Bible standards example. So this is more standards on righteous hair examples on Hebrew men. As you can see, this Hebrew brother right here doesn't have a full set of hair because he may have went bald at certain points on his head. But as you can see, he has his hair trimmed up on the side to make it look presentable. So this is ways men have to present themselves presentable, because of course they can't have too many patches in their head, of course, because they won't be able to get hired on certain jobs. But they can at least cut it up a certain type of way where at least looks presentable. So a Hebrew brother can trim up their hair to a certain point to make their hair look presentable to the public. Okay? So don't just have a bunch of patches, but at least have it presentable. Okay, we're talking about something that's looking presentable. Okay, at least cut it to a point where it looks presentable or something like that. Okay, but don't shave off all your hair from off your head. Okay, that'd be a sin to do so. But you can at least trim up your hair to make it look presentable. Just like this gentleman right here, he doesn't grow a full set of hair, but at least how he trimmed it up to make it look presentable in public. Okay, this is how you make yourself look decent, and this is the good understanding of the Most High. Okay, this is how you present yourself, you Hebrew men. If you are going bald in certain cases, you have to know how to trim your hair to make it look presentable. But again, do not shave off all your hair from off your head. Okay, now in many cases you do have certain men that may be going bald in general where they cannot grow no hair. Okay, now that's different, right? We're talking about people that can grow hair in their head and they're choosing to shave off all their hair off their head. We're not supposed to do that as Hebrew men. So in this example right here, you have this one brother right here. He has hair on his head and he has beard on his face. Okay, this is just examples on Hebrew men appearance examples for their hair. Okay, so the picture to the left, most people may call this the George Jefferson style or something like that, right? But at the end of the day, long as you have some type of form of good looking presentation with hair example being displayed on your head to a certain degree. You have to grow what you can grow. You have to trim it up and shape it up to make it look nice and clean for the public. Okay? This is the understanding. The next point says Hebrew men not in the truth, appearance examples. So we have in this point right here where you have examples of Hebrew men who are basically of the world, right? They are industry men, meaning they are in the entertainment industry. So their focus is not on the Bible. Say their focus is just entertainment and making money. So their presentation is not going to mimic the pattern of the Bible for the Hebrew men. Their pattern is going to match up what they observe in the world. So just like here, we have Samuel L. Jackson right here as a picture. He has a shaved head. Okay, because you look in many cases before, Samuel L. Jackson used to have hair displayed on his head. But now, later on in life, he wants to have a bald head. He's choosing to be bald. Last time I checked, he's a willful participant on shaving off all his hair. Okay? But we're not supposed to do that as Hebrew men. And also, as you can see, he has a clean shaved face. We're not supposed to do none of that. You know, because I seen in videos, this man had a beard on his face. Right? He was a man that I observed in the past having a beard on his face. So he's capable of growing a beard. He's choosing to shave off the beard. He's choosing to shave off the hair off the head, which we're not supposed to do because that is considered a sin according to the Most High. Okay, and also we have a brother over here with a mohawk on bald head example right over here, and this is Mr. T, right? Mr. T is in the industry, and he's not trying to come back to the Most High's righteousness. He still want to hold on to that philosophy that he took on back in the 70s and the 80s. He still want to have the same look. But in general, he's not supposed to have his hair in this type of appearance because he's able to grow hair on the side, right? But he's choosing to show off this design. You know, white men were known to have that type of example. You know, when they was doing that rock and roll thing, they was walking around with these type of mohawks, you know, where they have bald head on left and right, and then they have just hair in the middle. That's a rock and roll type of style, right? From the so-called white man. Or even some Africans be having that type of hairstyle, you know, from the Hamitic tribes, okay? But we are Hebrew Israelites, okay? Hebrew Israelites supposed to match up with Hebrew Israelite style, and we supposed to have hair on our head, point blank period. And we do have Hebrew Israelites dispersed in Africa, right? So in general, they supposed to be following righteousness of understanding. They supposed to be also following righteousness of understanding if they're Hebrew Israelites living in Africa. But the context is we have these Hebrew men in these picture examples not showing their Hebrew culture. They're showing worldly culture on what they observe from the other nations. Also in this next slide it says Hebrew men not in the truth, appearance example. So again, this picture right here is of Chris Brown, as you can see, having what appears to be blonde hair, right? He had dyed his hair blonde. See, Chris Brown is an industry dude. He only is about money and getting the girls. So getting the ladies, right? His focus is not on Yahweh's commandments. So that's why he has this appearance. See, as you can see, when you step outside the laws of the Most High, right, you look like a man of the world. You don't look like a spiritual man of the Bible. So we're going to go to the book of Leviticus chapter 13 verse 30, that it was forbidden or considered a plague for an individual to either put a blonde plague in their head or actually to even grow blonde hair in their head. Okay, it was actually considered a plague or forbidden to put that in a person's head. Leviticus chapter 13 verse 30 is going to explain how blonde hair is a sin, or it is basically a plague to do so. Okay. Leviticus chapter 13 verse 30. Then the priest shall see the plague, and behold, if it be in sight deeper than the skin, and there be in it a yellow thin hair, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a dry scale, even a leprosy upon the head or beard. So, having blonde hair on a particular Hebrew man's head, right, or Hebrew woman hair, was considered a plague. And also a Hebrew man growing a beard with blonde hair was considered a plague as well, because we have Hebrew men of the world dyeing their hair blonde or dyeing their beard blonde in different colors, right? That's going off. That's a sinful act to do. Now, of course, we do have brothers or sisters that may be naturally blonde, okay, but that is different. That's basically out of their control that they have blonde hair, if they are Hebrew men or Hebrew women having natural blonde hair. But we're concerning men and women who are not natural blonde. They're dyeing their hair blonde. That's the concern in this understanding, because we have individuals that are dyeing their hair blonde, or they're dyeing their beard blonde, okay, which is going into this yellow thin hair. So another word for yellow would be blonde. Okay. So again, that is a sin to do. So we're not supposed to be mimicking no Chris Brown. As you can see, this understanding, because Leviticus chapter 13 verse 30 considers blonde hair to be a plague. So a plague is not a good thing. Okay. It's basically like a curse. So we, as the children of Israel, should not be putting a curse in our head. As you can see, the understanding, we're supposed to love the way how the Most High designed us and accept our color of hair, basically. Hebrew men not in the truth appearance example. So this is a continuation of these men dyeing their hair blonde. As you can see, the understanding, you have some Hebrew men, just like this brother to the picture to the left with the locks. He blondes his locks to be what? Blonde colored a little bit. But he's not understanding, by doing so, he's putting a plague in his head, which is basically going into a curse. So he's putting a cursed plague in his head. And also, having a plague in your head is considered unclean. So this individual is considered unclean according to the Bible. You're not supposed to be putting plagues in your head, you Hebrew men. And also to the picture to the right, you have a brother that has somewhat like a mohawk, right? And he also has hair to the side, so he can wear this type of style if he didn't blonde his hair. Since he had blonde his hair, then guess what? He's in error. Okay? A person can have a mohawk as long as he has hair on both sides, of course. But this individual blonded his mohawk, which is going off. And this is just examples on how Hebrew men not in the truth appearance can be what? Going off. Okay, we're supposed to put off the imagery of righteousness. And also with the certain type of ear piercing, that's doing too much. Like how where this ear piercing is right there, how it's looking. Like like I said, this man looks clearly like a man of the world. But you know, that's to his own how he want to pierce his ear. But I'm going off the fact of the hair. Okay, the hairstyle is totally off with the coloring. Okay. And also, I'm not sure if he trimmed off his beard or I'm not sure. But the main thing, the hairstyle is off as far as the hair coloring. Okay. Not necessarily the design of the hair, but it's just actually what he had put in his hair to make it look blonde. Okay, that's going off. Also, Hebrew men not in the truth appearance example. So dyeing the hair color red or blue is going off as well. This is a sinful act to do, you Hebrew men. Just like it was a sinful act for these men to blonde their hair, it's also a sinful act to change your hair color to red or blue, because that's not the spirit of Christ. It's not the spirit of the Most High. Okay, you're not putting off the spirit of righteousness. You know, when people look at you in this example, they're not looking at Hebrew men in the truth. They're looking at a man of the world that likes to party and do crazy things, right? Or a person that's involved with a gang. That's what we used to see on television, that these men that used to have these different color hair, they was either involved with gangs or they was in the industry doing music, whether they was rapping or singing or whatever like that. You know, we didn't look at these men with these presentations as saying that these men were honorable men according to the Bible, right? Their presentation is not mimicking the presentation of the Bible. Even though these men may have a good spirit, but they don't have the spirit matching up with the Bible. Okay, so this is what we're trying to get the Hebrew men to match the presentation of the Bible, so their inner man can reflect the outer appearance. Okay. And this right here is not matching their inner appearance. This is matching a worldly appearance. So dyeing hair color red or blue is going off. And this what makes an individual not in the truth. Okay. So Hebrew men not in the truth, appearance examples. So when men and women see you Hebrew men looking like these two men, they're not saying, hey, you're a Hebrew Israelite. They're not going to say that. They're going to be looking at you kind of strange a little bit. Okay, that's all I'm just want to explain in this understanding. So now we go to the next slide. It says Hebrew men in the truth overall appearance needs to reflect their inner man to be shown in the proper light to match their outer appearance. So again, as you can see, the understanding. So it says this again: Hebrew men in the truth overall appearance needs to reflect their inner man to be shown in the proper light to match their outer appearance. So we want the Hebrew men to show that their outer appearance is matching their inner man. Okay, the inner man is that spirit within the man. We need to have that good spirit that's within the man to reflect the outer appearance, so they can be in a good presentation of the Most High. So this is that understanding when we get into the book of Romans chapter 7 verse 22. And this is what Apostle Paul was explaining to those people who are being referred to as being the Romans. And those particular people who were considered Romans in this context were going into the understanding of them being the Hebrew Israelites that were scattered in those Roman areas. So let's read Romans chapter 7 verse 22. For I delight in the law of Elohim after the inward man. So you see this, Israel? So after the inward man. So for I delight in the law of Elohim. So you're going to show a delightment in Yahweh's commandments based upon your inner man being in a reflection of your outer appearance. Because Yahweh's laws is external. Because to show that you love thy neighbor, love thyself, you have to apply it externally, meaning you have to show it in action. So you want that inner person that's within you to reflect the outer based upon you applying Yahweh's commandments. So that's why Apostle Paul says, for I delight in the law of Elohim after the inward man. Apostle Paul wanted the inner person within himself to have passion to do and apply Yahweh's commandments in a physical point. Not necessarily just having the knowledge spiritually. No, he wanted his spirit to actually apply Yahweh's commandments. That requires the outward appearance being shown to others. So now that light on that individual can be shown to others to mimic that same pattern. So that's the spirit Yahshua the Mashiach was tapping into. He was tapping into that vibration of his inner being a reflection on the outer. And that's how Yahshua the Mashiach was showing his light to others in Israel. So Apostle Paul was applying that same understanding of having that desire of Yahweh's commandments so it can be reflective on his outer appearance. So now he can stay consistent on his course because he loves keeping Yahweh's commandments. So individuals that may have a good spirit, but they're not building themselves to have a desire on keeping Yahweh's laws. So based upon them not having a desire to keep Yahweh's laws, they still look like the men of the world. That's the understanding. So when you apply Yahweh's commandments, you're showing a delightment in keeping Yahweh's laws, and you're showing your inward man now to be a reflection on your outer appearance. Just like this example right here to the right. You have a brother with a shirt on, with the fringes on, with the ribbon of blue. He has pants on. He has a beard. He has his hair in his head. He's looking like a man, point blank period. He's looking like a Hebrew man. He's not looking like a man of the world, like in those other examples that we showed earlier. He's looking like a Hebrew man that's confident in his belief. This is the type of light that you Hebrew men need to show on a day-by-day basis. Okay, and also you can wear your fringes, right? Or if you're not going to wear your fringes, guess what? You still need to show that you are a man. Okay? You still want your presentation to still be on point. Because we do know salvation is going to come based upon the heart of men. Not necessarily what you put on externally as far as an addition. Okay? But you want your inner person to match the outer. Okay? End of the day, you Hebrew men need to have the appearance of being a righteous man. That's what I'm just establishing. Whether you have fringes on or not, long as you are applying Yahweh's commandments overall. Okay, you meditate on Yahweh's commandments day and night. Okay, so that's the point. So when people see you, they know you're a child of the Most High based upon your works. Based upon you applying Yahweh's commandments in your life. So that's the understanding in the book of Romans chapter 7 verse 22. For I delight in the law of Elohim after the inward man. Because the inward man is that pure source, but you want that pure source to have a delightment and an enjoyment to what? Follow Yahweh's commandments. So you could put on the proper light to be a light to your people who are the children of Israel. So you Hebrew men, this is the understanding you must have if you want to walk in that new kingdom that's going to be established on earth during the Black Messiah's reign on earth. You want to walk in this kingdom in righteousness with your wife, right? You Hebrew men, this is the type of spirit you must have. Presentational wise, you have to mimic the pattern of righteousness if you want to be a part of this kingdom to come. Point blank, period.